To understand this story, you first need to know a very old love story. The story of Orpheus and Eurydice. It is said that Orpheus' music was unlike anything else in the world. When he sang, people fell silent, animals came closer, and even the trees seemed to lean toward him. Then he fell in love with Eurydice. They loved each other and got married. But their happiness did not last long. Eurydice died. Orpheus could not accept the death of the woman he loved. Instead of returning to a life without her, he decided to go somewhere no living person was meant to go. The underworld, where the dead lived. All he wanted was bring Eurydice back. When he descended there, he turned once again to his music. He sang with such pain that even Hades, the ruler of the underworld, was moved. And in the end, Hades gave Orpheus something that had seemed impossible. Eurydice would be allowed to return with him to the world of the living. But there was one condition. Orpheus would walk in front and Eurydice would follow behind him. Until they had completely reached the surface, no matter what happened, Orpheus was not allowed to turn around and look at her. Walk, do not look back. Orpheus walked through the darkness toward the light. Eurydice was behind him. He could not see her. Perhaps he could not even hear her footsteps. Still, he kept walking. The sun was ahead of him. They were almost there. All that distance, all that darkness, all that longing was about to end. Just as he approached the exit, doubt entered his mind. What if Eurydice was not behind him? What if Hades had deceived him? What if he had walked this entire path alone? Orpheus could not bear it any longer. He looked back. Eurydice really was there. But the moment Orpheus looked at her, Eurydice was pulled back into the underworld. This time, forever. Orpheus did not only lose the woman he loved, he also lost the future he had been carrying in his mind. Until that moment, the only future Orpheus had been able to imagine was one in which what he had lost in the past was returned to him. And perhaps this is exactly where the story of August, two eclipses begins for us. There is a silent argument a person can carry within themselves for years. If I have given this much, then one day life has to give me what I imagined. So you wait. You want to be able to look back one day and know that all that waiting meant something. The years pass. A voice inside you says, this many years cannot have been for nothing. You want to arrive somewhere. You want to see a life so beautiful on the other side of your pain that everything you went through suddenly falls into place. As if one day the future will open the door to the past. Walk inside. Look at everything that happened, one by one. Then turn to you and say, see, you were not wrong. You did not wait for nothing. You were not foolish. You were faithful. And this is something very deep inside us. What if the person you are waiting for never comes? Then what was all that waiting? What if the life you carried in your heart for years is never lived. Where do you put those years? Sometimes you think you are walking towards the future while you are still listening for a sound coming from the past. One foot moves forward while your ear remains turned backward. Maybe they will come. Maybe they will return. Maybe it will finally happen. Maybe one day life will place that old dream in front of you and say, "Here, this is what all of it was for." Then August 12th arrives, the solar eclipse in Leo. The sun goes dark, and when the center disappears for a moment, what has been circling around it for so long becomes easier to see. And you began asking yourself different questions. Do I really want this? Or am I searching for a beautiful ending to the pain I have carried for years? Is this really my future? Or did what happened to me in the past teach me that my future was supposed to look this way? Maybe this date gives something very important back to us here, something even greater than hope, the authorship of your own life. You are allowed to want something that has nothing to do with the wound you received in the past. You do not have to finish the story that was once left unfinished. A new story can begin, and it does not have to be a continuation of the old one. The next chapter of your life does not have to become the final word of a sentence that was left unfinished long ago. Then, maybe the end of August arrives, the lunar eclipse, another one. The old dream reaches the shore, and something very different begins to awaken inside you. The future cannot travel back into the past and change what happened. Even if Eurydike had reached the surface with Orpheus, it would not have erased the fact that Orpheus had descended into the underworld. That darkness would still have been lived, that fear would still have been felt, that road would still have been walked. Reunion cannot erase the fact that there was once a loss. A wish coming true does not have to transform every pain of the past into a sacred story. And there does not have to be a reward waiting at the end of every pain. You do not need a prize to prove that what you lived through had value. What you lived has already touched you. It entered you. It changed you. There are things you can no longer see the way you once did. There are things you can no longer accept the way you once did. Your heart has seen certain truths once, and now it cannot pretend that it never saw them. The past is not simply an old story sitting behind you. It continues to live within you, in your body, in your choices, in your heart, in the way you see the world. Perhaps this is where the deeper maturity of the eclipses begin, when you no longer need your future to justify your past, when you can look at the years that have passed without trying to turn them into something else, when you know that a love can have been real even if it did not last forever, when you see that even if someone does not remain in your life, the love you felt for them does not loses its value. When you stop asking your future happiness to repay you for the pain you once lived through, something inside you changed. Orpheus returned to the world of the living alone. Eurydike was not beside him. He did not return carrying a reward that allowed him to say, all of it was worth it. But the Orpheus who descended into the underworld and the Orpheus who came back out were not the same man. He had stood before death. He had loved. He had lost. He had walked all the way into the deepest darkness. And even there he had sung his song. When he descended into the underworld, he believed that one day the future would explain the entire journey. When he came back out, he no longer expected life to give him that explanation. Perhaps this is exactly the old agreement that breaks this August. I must receive something in my future in return for everything I lived through in my past. Repeat it for yourself. I must receive something in my future in return for everything I lived through in my past. This is an old agreement. Don't forget that. The old dream may still be beautiful. It may even be incredibly beautiful. There may have been a time when you wanted it with whole heart. You do not have to make that dream smaller. You do not have to make it ugly either. Bless it. Once it walked beside you. Once it kept you alive. Once it gave you direction in the darkness. But the life you are about to live does not have to kneel before it. The future does not owe you the debt of the past. Let the underworld remain where it is. It happened. Let the song remain there too. It was sung. You loved, you waited, you walked, and now keep walking. This time, not toward the old life you once believed was waiting for you at the end of the darkness. Walk toward a life whose shape you do not even know yet. Perhaps toward a life so vast that you could never have imagined it while you were still in the underworld. A life that was not built to repair the past. A life that does not have to prove anything to anyone. A life that does not have to become the answer to an old wound. A life that is no longer fighting with what happened. And perhaps for the first time, instead of walking toward the life you once believed was supposed to happen, walk toward the life that can truly be yours now and be written.